All right, so welcome back, Elaine, to the Zoom room for another Art of Letting Go live session. Let's start off with looking at today's quote. Quite a bit of teaching related to that, a few ideas that'll lead us nicely into today's lesson, which is the last review lesson for today. So let me share my screen with you. You can have a read of that quote, which is I'm trying to share my screen now. Okay, there we go. So you can read the quote from Gandhi just to kick it off. Let's make it a bit bigger for you.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Okay. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. We need not wait to see what others do. Gandhi.
So the more popularized shorter version was we must become the change we want to see in the world. You've probably seen that quote bandied about. He didn't actually say that. This was what he actually said. But people, someone summarized it and gone, we must become the change we want to see in the world, is the kind of short summary of that, with a bit of license, perhaps. So what he's saying really just reiterates the simple truth that to change anything for the better in the world, we must first change ourselves. All change starts within. So if we want a more peaceful world, we must be more peaceful ourselves. If we want a happier world, we need to be happy ourselves. If we want a more loving world, we must become more loving towards others. It should be self-evident, shouldn't it? I'm like, well, obviously, but not so obvious. To the ego, this doesn't make sense. The ego does crazy things like, let's say you want world peace, but then you quite violently and aggressively campaign for world peace. You're missing the point, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we'll have an anti-war demonstration, and we'll all get quite agitated and aggressive at that anti-war demonstration. Well, you're not promoting peace; you're promoting conflict and war. Mother Teresa was once asked apparently if she wanted to join an anti-war demonstration, and she thought about it for a bit, and she said no. But if it's a gathering for peace, then I'll be there, because she understood that any opposition, whenever you go, well, I'm anti anything, you put yourself in a state of conflict, and that's not peaceful. But a peace gathering where the intention is simply for peace, we're not anti anything, we're actually just going to hang out and we're going to be peaceful together. That's actually making a more peaceful world. As we've mentioned in the previous sessions that 1992, they had a gathering of transcendental meditators in Washington, D.C. For about 6 weeks, and they all gathered and they meditated together for hours every day, and that significantly reduced the crime rate, 25% reduction in the crime rate in the whole city over that period. Well, that's the power of peace. They weren't anti anything. They weren't protesting against crime or anti-war. They were just gathering and spending time together in harmony and peace, and that made a difference. And so this is why we do the program and all the mind training exercises and lessons it contains, because you want more peace. You want to be more peaceful, you want to be happier, more loving, and live in a happier, more peaceful, more loving world. And this is saying, well, you can be, but it starts with your own mind. You've got to change your own perception. You can't expect the world to become happier, more peaceful, more loving, just like that, without any change in your own mind. The ego does, and of course, it's deluded. That's never going to work. The only way you're going to become happier, more peaceful, and more loving is to change your own mind about the world. So the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics states that there is no reality in the absence of observation, so observation creates reality. Therefore, all you need to do to change the world is to change your perception of it, which is what Yeshua advises us to focus on in this quote from the introduction to chapter 21. So if you can read that. One of the most profound paragraphs, I think, in the whole course. Yes.
Yeah. Projection makes perception. The world you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. But though it is no more than that, it is no less. Therefore, to you it is important. It is the witness to your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. As man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. A Course in Miracles.
Seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. And that's, primary. That's what the Course is teaching us. You can't change the external world. That's just magic. Trying to rearrange the furniture on the deck chair of the Titanic, you could put it in those terms. Rather change your mind about it, and that's what the whole mind training is about. The new thoughts about the world create new beliefs and new emotions that form new neural pathways in your brain, which then start to become your new identity. And that new identity also profoundly affects your body's biochemistry, inspires or induces you to continue to change your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, perceptions, decisions, and actions in a way that aligns with this new belief. This creates and continually reinforces a new reality for yourself, which is why beliefs are powerful and need to be chosen with conscious awareness of ultimate truth, rather than a false desire for separate individual identity. And we look at the diagram that David Hoffmeister included in the Instrument for Peace process, which was given to him by Yeshua, apparently in a guided way in meditation. This diagram came. It sort of illustrates the levels that we talked about. You start with perception, that's at the surface level, but underneath perception lies emotion, and then underneath that lies thought. Underneath thought lies a belief system. So your thoughts and your emotions and your perceptions are based on a belief system. And if that belief system is false, then all of your thoughts, emotions, and perceptions are false. That's the teaching, isn't it? So everything that you experience on these higher levels is false if it comes from a false belief about who you are. If you think you're a separate self and you're a body with an individual identity, then all of the thoughts, emotions, and perceptions that come from that foundational belief must also be wrong, correct? And so you're living your life in an illusion. It's a false world. It's a false reality. A false character living in a false world with a false identity, with false thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. And of course, it doesn't work. How can you expect to find happiness, peace, and love if it's all upside down and it's false? And of course, we have to discover that experientially. We think that we know the truth, and we think that these thoughts and emotions and perceptions and our fundamental belief that we're a separate self are true, but then we keep experiencing negativity. We keep experiencing stress and difficulty and pain and suffering and sickness and death. And of course, those are designed to wake us up to the fact that, well, actually, you're just in a false belief system. You're in the product of a false belief system, which isn't true, and it's never going to work. And so when things go wrong in the dream, on the perceptual level, on the emotional level, on the thought level, It's really a symptom of an underlying falsity in our belief system. And that's what we've got to start realizing. Okay, if I'm struggling here on a perceptual level, on an emotional level, or thought level, then I must have a false belief system still going on. So let me dig in and go deeper into my mind and uncover that belief system. Because when I see that belief system clearly, then I can start to look beyond it. And I can say, well, actually, that belief is just a manifestation of a desire to be a separate self. Let's say I believe that I'm unworthy. It's a common belief that the people who are not awakened have. I'm unworthy of love. I'm not good enough. This is the common program that we uncover in the Art of Letting Go process, the Name Your Game exercise. If I have that, then based on that, my thoughts and my emotions and my perceptions are going to be false, because that's just not true. That's not who I really am. There's an alternative, though, to that desire to be an unworthy little separate self, and that's prayer, he calls it in the slide, which is accepting your true self. Saying, well, actually, my only prayer is to be one with my true self, my true identity, my Christ self, my Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it. That is not a separate self, that knows that it's not separate from anyone or anything, that it is in fact one with the very essence of life. That's our source, and it's one, therefore, with everything and everyone else. Now, from that foundation, I have a different belief about myself. How can I be unworthy if I am the very essence of life itself? There's no sense of unworthiness then. I am that I am. I am that very life essence that is beyond name and form. So how can I feel unworthy then? And then how can my thoughts and my emotions be out of alignment with that sense of infinite absolute presence, which is ultimate existence, in which the question of my worth doesn't even come in. And then my perceptions must change. If I'm now thinking in this expanded way, that I am, and there's nothing that I'm not, and I'm connected with everyone, all of my perceptions change. So instead of getting upset and angry and fearful, I now go, okay, well, it's all fine. No matter what's happening on the perceptual level, it's fine, because actually I'm rooted in my true awareness, and the truth is still true. And I don't need to really get upset about the perceptions. I can just let go of any negative emotions and thoughts, and any residual belief in my separate self, and come back into my true awareness and rest in that awareness. I rest in God, to quote lesson 109 of the course. So very, very profound diagram, and illustrating exactly what the levels of mind are that we need to go through in order to awaken. You need to get to the core level, and start to really stay in the prayer of the heart. That I stay in that in that connected state, and I don't allow the desire to come in and sabotage that. And of course, the ego is always going to try. So you have to be very aware of, well, which voice am I listening to? Is it a desire to be a separate self, or is it the prayer of the heart to be oneself, to be my true self, that I'm listening to here? And that translates into, well, I'm going to follow a different voice, a different thought system, depending on which desire or prayer I listen to. So my belief system is based on the desire of the ego to be a separate self, or the prayer of the heart to be oneself. And then all of my thoughts and emotions and the perceptions they induce follow from the fundamental premise of my belief about who I am. And so the miracle happens when we get to this core level and we make a different choice. So this is from the Instrument for Peace worksheet, which if you click on there, you can actually get the whole worksheet, which then allows you to see it at what level you're working. Oh, there's John. That's nice. It allows you then to see at what level you're working by answering these questions. So connect in with the diagram quite nicely, and then it takes you through a whole process to drill down, essentially, from the perception level down into your core belief and get beyond that. Hi, John.
Hi, Jono. Hi, Elaine.
How are you?
Hi, John.
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome. Yeah. Good. Yeah, we've still got a lot of the session to go. So
Yep,
that's
good.
it's great. We're just doing today's email and we'll get into the lesson just now. So this process of changing your mind at the fundamental level of desire is what Yeshua calls a miracle. Like when you say, I choose in this situation to be oneself and to be one again with my source and one with everyone else who's in the situation, then I'm choosing the Holy Spirit. I'm choosing an entirely different thought system. And that's what the miracle is. This fundamental change of mind usually leads to miraculous effects on the level of behavior and form outcomes, because our beliefs create our perceptions or experience of reality in this world, as is well illustrated in this diagram showing the integral model developed by American author and philosopher Ken Wilber. So when we change fundamentally, we change our thoughts, our emotions, our state of mind, our perceptions, everything we've seen here. Thought, emotion, perception, belief, that all changes. Internally, that's the subjective I self, the individual interior. That automatically has an effect on the external because it's connected. These lines are like contour lines. When we're, at that level of awareness, that tends to have an impact on the objective world. So that's the it related to our body, our brain, our actions, our behavior. That follows from that state of awareness. And so this is why we don't have to effort and stress and strain and strive, because if you're at that level of awareness, that will have a corresponding effect in behavior, and you'll be guided out of that level of awareness. You'll be told what you should do, and if you follow that guidance, then miracles happen. Synchronicity or miracles start to happen on the external, because that's a reflection of the internal shift that you've undertaken. So what we've got to do, if you're at a lower level of awareness, let's say you're rooted in the ego, and it's about guilt and fear and anger and attack thoughts, you've got to let those go, and you've got to raise yourself up into an awareness of your true self that is not limited by the ego's belief in scarcity and unworthiness. And if you do that and you're able to stay there, then you'll get guidance accordingly. And that's where your intuition comes in. The actions and the decisions follow from that level, if you can stay at that level. And then it becomes effortless. At the higher levels, it's effortless effort. You're doing stuff, but it feels really guided and inspired and synchronistic, rather than, I've got to try and make something happen because I'm desperate. I'm in a fearful, desperate place, and I've got to now try and manifest something to get me out of that. Well, that is just more of the same. You're going to get outcomes that are calibrate out on that energetic level. I think the diagram illustrates that quite well. These are like energetic contour lines. And John, you're a walker, so you'll know about contour lines. If you walk along the contours, everything's reasonably effortless, isn't it, in walking? Because you stay on the same level. It's when having to go. I remember once I didn't understand contour lines, and so we had to plot a route, and they gave us a map, and I was, well, let's just go straight there. I was like, right, okay, so that's what contour lines mean. We're now going down into a gully and then up the other side. I get it. Now I understand what contour lines mean. So in the same way, if you want a smooth ride, you go, okay, let me raise myself up, my awareness up to the higher energetic level. Then I'm on a different contour line, and then from that level it flows, and I'll be guided, and things will be a lot easier. I don't necessarily know how they'll play out, but I'll be guided in that state of awareness to think and say and do. make whatever decisions I need to. And that's how that's why miraculous manifestation beats conscious manifestation every time, because conscious manifestation says, well, you'll stay pretty much at your level of awareness. There's desires, there's fears, and you're going to try and manifest something at that level, and you will, because the nature of mind is that the internal interior then creates the exterior, but it's at that level, so it's quite limited. Whereas if you are able to let go of that level of thinking, as Einstein said beautifully, the significant problems we face can't be solved at the same level of thinking we're at when we created them. You drop that level and you go up in awareness into a much more expanded awareness, because you've let go of that way of thinking. Then you open your mind to many other possibilities, and the Holy Spirit will then guide you accordingly at that higher energetic frequency. And at that lower level, you just can't conceive of what's possible at the higher level. You have to go to that level before you can tap into that level of power. And that's why miracles are much more powerful than conscious manifestation. But most people don't understand or know this, because they don't understand how the mind really works, which is why we study this. And I'm reminding you, these diagrams and concepts and ideas are there to remind you of how the mind really works. And then I thought this particular talk by a guy called Dr. Bruce Lipton on the biology of belief was pertinent, so I included it, because it gives you quantum perspective on how changing your mind positively can miraculously change your body and world. So Bruce Lipton's hypothesis is that if you change your beliefs, that has a significant influence on the body, and you start to get very different kinds of biochemistry showing up. The body is profoundly influenced by what's going on internally, and then that controls the way your body functions. It controls body performance. It controls disease, aging. All of this is really very much under the control of mind on a subconscious level. And he explains how that biology of belief actually works. So again, by simply letting go and going to a higher level of awareness, you then activate the life energy to come into the body and keep your body younger, fitter, stronger, healthier than it would have been. Becomes a more functional instrument, able to operate at a higher level than it would otherwise be. And again, most people don't understand this. They try and solve their problems on that level of thinking. So on the body level, the form level, you say, well, I want a better body. I'll go to gym. I'll try and make myself healthier by eating differently. And I'm not saying any of those things are necessarily bad, but if you haven't fundamentally changed your mindset, then you haven't really changed anything. And usually those kinds of changes don't stick. People can't stick to diets and exercise regimes because there's been no fundamental shift in their identity and their core beliefs. Whereas as soon as you shift that, you shift your core belief and your identity, then everything changes, and that can happen in an instant. You just go, I get it. I'm not going to do that anymore. And everything changes. I mentioned that Elaine the other night, but John, I don't think John was there. That instance with that chap who was he was some musician in working with Cher. I think he was in her band or something. And he was still doing drugs into his 40s or 50s, and he said he went into a bathroom, and there was this young girl, and she was snorting cocaine. And he's, oh, well, I'll join her. And then suddenly he went, what am I doing? This is crazy. Like, she's in her 20s, I'm in my 40s or 50s. And I'm still, like, I haven't learned anything. And in that moment, he just shifted. It was like there was a quantum shift. He went from, a lower level of, okay, that's acceptable behavior and all this addiction and attachment, to going, no, suddenly that's not acceptable. In that moment of letting go, he raised his awareness up. And then on the physical level, it was like, okay, I'm going to give up the drug. I'm not going to do cocaine anymore. And profoundly changed his his life because he dedicated his life to much more worthy causes, and snorting cocaine in a bathroom, and started a foundation to help, I think it was kids or something, and really like found his true self, and that started to manifest in his life in a very powerful way, in an instant, a holy instant. That shift happened because in that moment when he let go of that old behavior pattern, he dropped his old identity and he went up several notches in awareness, and then that played out in time. It's like, okay, well, he just stopped the drug. He and his entire life changed and started to become, guided by the Holy Spirit, and in flowing in a much more positive synchronistic way, which simply couldn't have happened if he hadn't had that internal shift. So that's how miracles work, and that's why they're so powerful. So yeah, any thoughts, comments, or questions on any of this? It's digging into some of the mechanics of the mind and how it works, how miracles really work. And that's the diagrams just explain really what Yeshua's teaching us in words in the course. So hopefully they helpful.
That's good for me, Jono. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, I understand too.
All right, good. So let's brings us to our live session, and hopefully it prepares us well for the lesson. Another lesson. So let's dive into that, shall we? Just give me a moment to record this. Okay, so last review lesson 150. Just those three key ideas. So John, yeah, if you want to read them in the original and the alternative. So my mind holds only what I think with God. My awareness holds only what I think with perfect loving awareness. I just couldn't fit the alternative into one slide.
My
And
mind
then the
holds only what I think with God. I accept at-one-ment for myself. Only salvation can be said to cure. Or in the alternative, my awareness holds only what I think with perfect loving awareness. I accept at-one-ment for myself. Only awakening can be said to cure.
So let's unpack that. Let's do one idea at a time. This idea has been with us for 10 days, but I think it's the first time you've been in a session. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's quite an uplifting thought, actually. It's kind of like a reassuring thought. And I find it acts as an incentive to not dwell on worldly thought.
Yeah. I mean, I was using it today because I've got a situation where some guy owes someone I introduced him to money, and I was like getting a bit like, and I went, no, but my awareness or my mind holds only what I think with perfect loving awareness. And I changed it from my normal pure formless awareness of perfect love, because in this context that can be a bit abstract. But perfect loving awareness speaks direct. Okay, well, is my awareness perfectly loving at the moment? No. I wasn't thinking perfectly loving thoughts at that time. I was going, well, why is he doing this? And why is he behaving this way? Why hasn't he done what he said he'd do? Not perfect loving awareness. There was some criticism, some condemnation in there. And then this just corrects it. You go, okay, well, if my mind holds only what I think with perfect loving awareness, then those kinds of thoughts I need to let go of. They don't serve me. They're not true. So all of these ideas are there to help you correct your mind, which is what awakening or healing is all about, as he goes on to talk about in the two ideas for review. Okay, happy with that one. Elaine, any thoughts on that key idea?
Yeah, no, that's very clear. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it is. Okay, and then I accepted one-ment for myself. Any thoughts on that, Elaine?
Well, if you let it sink deep, then it's very encouraging.
At one-ment. You know, if you say it as that instead of atonement, it's like, I accept the at-one-ment. In other words, I am one. What you're saying is I am one with my source, and I'm one with all the extensions of my source. That's all my brothers, all my companions. That's what accepting at-one-ment means, which is, you know, incredibly profound.
Having no enemies.
So these ideas are enormously powerful. I mean, if you accept one of these ideas and you actually lived it, it's completely life-changing. I accepted one-ment for myself. You actually live that. Completely changes your mind about who you are. Accepted one-ment for myself. We go back to this diagram of the mind. I'm really saying at the very core level, the prayer of my heart is answered. The true prayer is letting go of the false desire to be a separate self and the acceptance of your true self or Christ awareness. That's what it means. I accepted one-ment for myself. Well, that fundamentally changes your belief about who you think you are. That changes your thoughts, your emotions, and your perceptions. Given that this makes up your life, you absolutely change your life by just applying this one sentence. Of course, the application is the trick. Not always easy to apply it in practice and say, well, I'm accepting at-one-ment for myself right now in my practical daily life. You have to be vigilant, because it's very easy not to accept it and start thinking thoughts that are not one with God or perfect loving awareness. And you find yourself going down that rabbit hole, and then you wonder why. Well, I'm not feeling that inspired anymore. I'm feeling a little bit low energy, or I'm feeling a little bit uptight or upset. It's because you indulged in thoughts that weren't perfectly loving, and you weren't accepting one-ment for yourself. You're accepting the ego and its idea of separation in that moment. Okay. Any other thoughts on that one? Otherwise, let's go to next review idea. John, let's read it again in the original alternative and just some comments on it.
I accept at-one-ment for myself. Only awakening can be said to cure. Yeah, so it's only awakening can be said to cure.
Yeah, which is our translation for salvation again. I think that makes it more pertinent. Salvation, what does that mean? Salvation means the awakening process. So only that awakening process, which he's guiding us, he's training our minds to awaken systematically and progressively through this course, can be said to cure anything. So you haven't really cured anything if you have any kind of worldly solution. I thought about it actually today because I had a quite a bad headache. So yeah, I took some paracetamol. But I just thought, well, that's not really the cure, is it? The true cure is to transcend the body and any kind of pain and suffering entirely. That would be the cure, wouldn't it? So if you're not in a body and you're in pure formless awareness of perfect love, then the idea of paracetamol is ridiculous. You don't need it because you're not a body. That's what he means by curing. It doesn't mean on the level I was like, yeah, well, I took it because I don't particularly want to have a headache for the next few hours while I'm in a session. And it, on that level it worked. Yeah, I don't have a headache anymore. But it wasn't really a cure, was it? It didn't really cure the problem, which is separation. And that's what he means. So it's levels of understanding. This doesn't mean that you never take a paracetamol or go see a doctor or do something on the physical level. Just understand when you're doing that it's not the real cure. That the real cure is awakening from being a body. If you're not a body, then none of those magic remedies that the ego's invented for bodily ailments is necessary. That's the real cure. That's what he's saying with this second idea. Is that clear? Any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's clear. Mm-hmm.
No, I'm good with that. Yeah.
So again, very, very profound ideas. This says don't get attached to the magic solutions that the ego wants to attach to, and make that into a cure. Even if you use that magic, as I did by taking the paracetamol, like I'm not believing in it. That's the key. Don't believe in it. Don't go, oh, that's the answer. Because it's not. The true cure is awakening. The true cure is freeing myself of the delusion that I'm a body, and that I can suffer in any way. Any pain or suffering in the body is a delusion. And pure formless awareness of perfect love, that doesn't exist. So the awakening from the dream that I'm a body is the real cure. And so then that's fine. I used the situation, took the paracetamol, but reminded myself of the truth in the moment. Then you don't lose yourself in the illusion. And that's how you can still be in the world, but not of the world. Okay, so take your paracetamol, or if you've got any other condition, maybe there's something you've got to do about it, but don't think that that's the ultimate cure, because it's not. The ultimate cure is to let go of your belief that you're a body, which we'll look at in today's text reading, which is called Beyond the Body. Okay, so that prepares us quite nicely for that. So two options. We could do a meditation now. Often the meditation gets too late if we leave it. So if you want to do it, suggest we do it now, and then we can go into the text, or we could just do the text now and then see if we have time for the meditation at the end of the session. What's the consensus?
Yeah, text. Yeah, we can go into text. I mean, I don't mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to go to the text. Yeah.
Text. Yeah, okay. I mean, nice lead in, because only salvation, awakening can be said to cure, leads directly into the idea that we're not a body, which is the subject of today's text reading. So we jump into that then. All right, so this one is section 6 of chapter 18, titled Beyond the Body. Quite a long one. There's 14 paragraphs, so it's 14 if I'm right. And there's a summary. So let's see how we go. I don't have any time limits, so I can carry on and finish the section. All right, so John, why don't you kick it off? What actually has been working for us recently is no, I'll tell you what, because there are two of you. So why doesn't one of you read the original, and then the other one read the alternative?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
if you want to read the original, John, and then Elaine comes in with the
Yeah.
alternative,
Yeah.
sentence to pause and say the alternative. Yeah.
There is nothing outside you.
There is nothing outside me.
That is what you must ultimately learn, for it is the realization that the kingdom of heaven is restored to you.
That is what I must ultimately learn, for this is the realization that the state of pure formless awareness is restored to me.
For God created only this, and he did not depart from it, nor leave it separate from himself.
For pure formless awareness of perfect love extends only this, and it has never departed from itself, nor left it separate from itself.
The kingdom of heaven is the dwelling place of the Son of God, who left not his Father and dwells not apart from him.
The state of pure formless awareness is the natural state of extension of perfect love, which never left its source and is not apart from it.
Heaven is not a place nor a condition.
The state of pure formless awareness is not a place or a condition.
It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else, nothing outside this oneness and nothing else within.
It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else outside the oneness and nothing else within. From the top.
Okay.
I'll read it from the top, right?
Yeah. There is nothing outside me. That is what I must ultimately learn, for this is the realization that the state of pure formless awareness is restored to me. For pure formless awareness of perfect love extends only this, and it has never departed from itself nor left it separate from itself. The state of pure formless awareness is the natural state of the extension of perfect love, which never left its source and is not apart from it. The state of pure formless awareness is not a place or a condition. It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else outside this oneness and nothing else within. It's just saying that there's nothing outside of us and there's nothing else but this oneness. And this state of pure formless awareness is the natural state, and it's never left its source and is not apart from it. It's not a place or a condition. It's just the awareness of perfect oneness. And just to know there's nothing else outside and nothing else within.
I think you know, it's a lovely paragraph which can clear up a whole load of misconceptions about what heaven is. He's saying heaven is not a place nor a condition. Some people think it's a place, it's up in the sky somewhere, or in another dimension, or no, it's just an awareness of perfect oneness. And there's just this pure formless awareness of perfect love, the state of pure formless awareness, as we call it, which is a state of awareness. And in that state, there's nothing else. That's it. That's, all reality. What we're living in is the denial of that awareness. This world is as a product of the denial of that state of awareness. That's the whole teaching. And so to get back to that state, you must deny the denial. If you've denied that state of awareness, you've got to deny the denial of that awareness, and that's going to get you back to the awareness, ultimately, which is what this whole process of correcting one's mind is about. And knowledge is just that state of awareness. Knowledge is not, I know about 10,000 different things in the world. Knowledge is, I am this awareness. That's what he means by knowledge. When I'm rooted in this awareness, and there's only this awareness, then I'm in a state of knowledge. Then I know myself. Okay. Pretty clear, I think. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions on that, John? Happy to move on.
Yeah, I'm happy to move on.
Let's go to number 2 then. So let's switch it around. Elaine, you read the original, and then John can read the alternative.
What could God give but knowledge of himself?
What could pure formless awareness of perfect love give but knowledge of itself?
What else is there to give?
What else is there to give?
The belief that you could give and get something else, something outside yourself, has cost you the awareness of heaven and of your identity.
The belief that I could give and get something else outside myself has cost me the awareness of the state of pure formless awareness and my identity.
And you have done a stranger thing than you yet realize.
And I have done a stranger thing than I realize yet.
You have displaced your guilt to your body from your mind.
I have displaced my guilt to my body from my mind.
You who think you hate your body, deceive yourself. Oh,
I deceive myself. I think I have. I deceive myself if I think I hate my body. If I hate my mind, oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. You hate your mind, for guilt has entered into it, and it would remain separate from your brothers, which it cannot do.
I hate my mind, for guilt has entered into it, and my mind wants to remain separate from my companion's mind, which it cannot do.
Okay, and an alternative. John, if you can read the alternative for us.
What could pure forms awareness of perfect love give but knowledge of itself? What else is there to give? The belief that I could give and get something else outside myself has cost me the awareness of the state of pure forms awareness and my identity. And I have done a stranger thing than I realize yet. I have displaced my guilt to my body from my mind. Yet a body cannot be guilty, for it can do nothing itself. I deceive myself if I think I hate my body. If I hate my mind, for guilt has entered into it, and
There's
my
no
mind.
I hate my mind.
Oh, I hate my mind, for guilt has entered into it, and my mind wants to remain separate from my companion's mind, which it cannot do.
Okay. What's he saying in that one?
It's saying that it's saying that we've been kidding ourselves if we can think we can do deals and trade off something and get more from what we trade in than what we get back or what we give. And is saying that even more strange is that we've displaced our feelings of guilt into our body. And the body can't actually be anything. It's just a vehicle. So we can't blame our body through disease. Because we've lost track of the fact that we are always joined with our companion.
Many dysfunctions in this world, seemingly centered on the body. People hate their body, there's self-abuse, attacking the body, self-harm, overeating, and various other ways that we attack our bodies. And then we think, I hate my body. But actually, it's my mind that I hate. The body is just a mask. So it's a convenient projection mechanism. The ego says, oh, well, I hate my body, and focuses on that because it doesn't want us to see that actually we hate our mind. The ego hates itself. That's the problem. So we cherish a separate identity, and yet we loathe it. We want it, and yet we hate it. And of course, that's totally contradictory. It makes no sense at all. Well, how can you love it and hate it at the same time? Which is why in the ego, our minds are so split and we're so torn. And there's all these kinds of dysfunctions, are common in an insane world. Because we've split our mind, and we're very confused now about where the source is. We think it's in the body, and people then displace their guilt onto the body and try and attack their body or other bodies, but actually the problem is in the mind. They're just using the body to act out the hatred that's in the mind. So remember that the ego is all about self-loathing. It really can't stand itself, because fundamentally its existence is predicated on the denial of love. It's a negative existence. It only exists because it's denied truth and love. So it can never have any kind of sense of real self-esteem, because it's a negative entity that only exists because of the denial of love. If we go here, you see that very clearly. So because if this theory is correct, and it is indeed, then there's no way you can save the ego. There's no possible salvation for it. It can't improve. It just has to be let go of and undone entirely, because at its very core, it's unworthy, and it will always feel unworthy, and it'll always feel the guilt and the sin, because it only exists because it thinks it's destroyed perfect oneness, or pure formless awareness of perfect love. Its entire existence is predicated on the destruction of that which is perfect, whole, complete, and eternal. Well, how can any entity that has that as its fundamental, its foundation, be ever be functional or happy? Yeshua's saying it's not possible. You'll never make it work. Therefore, give it up. And so the understanding these metaphysics are essential, because then you will understand that the only way you're ever going to solve anything in this world is by following Yeshua's guidance and giving it all up and saying, well, I've really just got to let it all go. Anything that seems to happen in this thought system of separation based on this false identity of a separate self, that has to be let go of. That has to be dropped. I can't carry on believing in that and also find peace and happiness and ultimate salvation or awakening to who I am. The two are mutually contradictory. And that's the non-dual nature of this teaching. And that's why forgiveness, the radical forgiveness he's teaching, is the only thing that's going to work. Because, of this fundamental truth that underlies it. That you just can't fudge it. You can't say, well, I can have a little bit of the ego and that's okay. As I've heard, many teachers say. There's many spiritual leaders saying, well, the ego's all right and you can have a bit of it, as long as the ego's not in charge and as long as the ego is somehow subservient to God. And Yeshua's saying, well, that's not possible, because that totally contradicts God. Its existence is predicated on the denial of God. So, if you accept the ego, then you must deny God, and you are going to experience the guilt and the sin for that in your own mind. Although it's not real, you'll believe it's real. Okay, so is that clear? What are you saying?
Yeah,
And then
that's good.
go back to the diagram. What we then do, instead of dealing with it on the mind level, very cunningly, the ego takes us down the ladder of separation and says, well, now you're a body. And now you're going to project your guilt onto the body, your body or other bodies, and you're going to focus your attention on that, which takes it away from the real source of the guilt and the real problem, which is in the mind, and then projects it out onto the body. So we're now further removed from the truth. Because if we could look at the guilt and the sin and the fear and the hatred in our minds, we might then recognize, well, this has got to go. I can't ever find peace and love and joy and happiness with this going on in my mind. So I have to let these thoughts and emotions, and in fact, the whole identity tied up with them go. Instead, the ego says, well, I'll project it out onto the body, and now focus your attention on the body, and try and solve the problem at the body level, which of course you'll never do. So just another deception, another defense against the truth. And that's what it uses the body for. And that's why we focus so much attention on the body, and there's so much attack that goes into the body. We attack our own bodies. We want to attack other people's bodies because it keeps us away from the mind where the real problem lies. And of course, if the ego can do that, then we never get to the root of it, and it maintains its existence in our mind. So the body is like a mirror or a smoke screen for what's really going on in the mind. Just another defense, another distraction device that the ego has invented to stop us ever getting to the real problem, which is in the mind. Okay, we move on to number 3 then. Minds are joined, bodies are not. Just switch it again. So
minds are joined, bodies are not.
Minds are joined, but bodies are not.
Only by...
Obviously, there isn't really anything to translate in this, so you can probably just read it in the alternative.
Oh, shall I do that?
Yeah, I think it was your turn, Elaine. Yeah.
Okay. Minds are joined, but bodies are not. Separation only seems to be possible when I assign the properties of mind to my body, and it is my mind that seems to be fragmented, private, and alone. Its guilt, which keeps it separate, is projected onto my body, which suffers and dies because it is attacked to hold the separation in the mind and deny its true identity. Mind cannot attack, but my deluded mind can make fantasies and direct the body to act them out. Yet it is never what my body does that seems to satisfy. Unless my mind believes my body is real, just acting out its fantasies, it will attack my body by increasing the projection of its guilt upon it. I was just saying the minds are joined, but bodies are not. And it's our minds that are fragmented, private, and alone. And it's this guilt that keeps it separate. And it gets projected onto the body, and it suffers and dies. And it's saying the mind cannot attack, but our minds are deluded from all these fantasies that direct it to the body.
And this is why there's so much suffering in bodies, because the mind's projected all of its guilt and its hatred and its self-loathing onto the body, and then it punishes itself through the body. Now it says, well, you must age, you must suffer, you must ultimately die because of your sin of destroying love. That's why there's so much suffering and ultimately death. Suffering, sickness, and death come from the attempt by the mind to punish itself for its sin, and it acts it out through the body. And now you start to realize why, this world works the way it is, why there is so much pain and suffering and sickness and death, all attached to the body, why it's set up that way, and why it doesn't really matter what we try and do to fix that, to heal that. We've created all kinds of systems, the whole medical system doesn't really fix it, does it? There's still all this pain and suffering and sickness and death, and we're just really trying to ameliorate somehow that suffering. So we come back to the lesson today saying the only thing that's going to cure that is awakening. It's the only way out of this bind we've got ourselves into. Awaken to the knowledge that you're not a body, and that, you know, acting out the mind's fantasies in the body is just not a smart idea. So it's delusional, and you're gonna give up on that, because it's never going to work. Never what my body does that seems to satisfy. As my mind believes my body is really just acting out its fantasies, it will attack my body by increasing the projection of its guilt upon it. Does this make sense? Quite deep, profound teaching he's giving us here, but it explains why the body suffers, why the body ages, why it dies, in a way that I haven't seen any other teaching explain. Okay, well, you know, how does any of this have anything to do with love? It doesn't have anything to do with love. That's the whole point. It's a delusion. It's a departure from love. That's why the whole system doesn't work. As soon as you bring God into it and you say, well, God created the body and God is somehow responsible for this world, you're mixing your levels. You can't do that. You're trying to bring the eternal and truth into the illusion, instead of just seeing the illusion for what it is and saying, well, you know, none of it's true. This is just a deluded fantasy that my mind has made up. But it's so radical because it denies our core, what we believe is us. We think we're our separate self and we think we have a body. You know, it denies that completely and says, no, you're not at all. That's just a delusion. You're pure mind. And you don't need to act out your fantasies and attack the body anymore. That's just pointless and futile. So stop doing it. Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
That's
Well,
good.
yeah. Well, the only thing is with the body, we've got animal bodies, you know, cats and dogs, and they don't have the same mind as us, but we see them age and die. So
Well, they do. They have an ego as well. You know, they're all part of the same system. Remember, let's go back to this diagram. You see at the top level here, this ego mind, this consciousness or universal mind that's separated from pure formless awareness of perfect love, that gave birth to all the individual forms that we now see manifested in the universe of time and space. So anything that has come into form has that belief in separation. Not consciously. This is at a deeper unconscious level, but any form, any animal, any plant has a fundamental belief in separation. It also has, deeper than that level, it has this awareness. It couldn't have any life if it didn't have pure formless awareness of perfect love. So we have those two going on seemingly simultaneously, and the interplay between this awareness, the deeper awareness, and this consciousness of a separate self is what makes up this world. That's what creates the all of the events and circumstances and the drama of this world, is the interplay between the dark and the light. And Yeshua's saying, well, only one of these is true. You know, those animals are not bodies. They are not separate cells with separate entities or souls in any way. They are the same awareness as you are. They are pure formless awareness of perfect love that never departed from its home. We are one. We are one in the same awareness, which transcends any separate identity that they seemingly have. They're not separate from each other. They're not separate from you. We are one in the same awareness. That's what this is saying. Is that clear, Elaine?
Yeah, that's clear. Yeah, thank you.
So always take it, you know, what tends to happen, I mean, as you did there, you get kind of mired up in the illusion, don't you? You get caught up in projections and in the form. And Yeshua's always saying, don't do that, because there's no answer there. You're not going to find any answers down at the bottom levels of the projection, which is why there's so much confusion at these levels. You know, we try and find answers And we don't find the answers within the thought system of the
No,
ego. There
yeah,
are no
yeah.
answers. You just get caught up
So,
going around and around,
yes.
trying to find answers there. As Einstein said, significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. It's a profound insight into this world. So we can't solve the problems of the ego at the level of the ego, because the problem seems to be entrenched in this world, and they just go on, and you try and find some way to ameliorate the suffering, to maybe fix it within the construct of the world, and we still haven't succeeded. We've been trying as human beings for a very long time, and all of our technology is an attempt to try and fix these problems on the level of form at which they were created. You understand that?
Yeah.
So we
yeah.
have a medical system, we have technology that makes our lives easier, but nevertheless, we still age, we still get sick, we still suffer, we still die. And that happens over and over and over again. That's the human story. And nothing we've invented yet, no technology stops that, does it? And no technology ever will, because you're still within the framework of the ego, which is predicated on guilt and sin. And guilt demands punishment. So you must then have punishment, you must have fear, you must have attack. They are entrenched in the system. You can't get rid of them unless you go to first principles and you say, well, maybe the entire idea of being a separate self and incarnating as some kind of individual entity in an insane world, maybe that whole idea needs to go. That's just insane. The whole system needs to go. That's the way out. That's what he's saying. So always raise it up into the higher level of awareness of the whole picture, which inevitably takes you to pure formless awareness of perfect love. What lies outside of the thoughts of separation is a pure awareness. We call pure formless awareness of perfect love, or perfect oneness, or God, whatever you want to call it. That at that level, names don't really matter. But as he said, it's just a state. Heaven is just a state of being in this awareness, of being in perfect knowledge of this awareness. And then none of these secondary concerns that happen down here, concerns about bodies and, oh, well, we're human bodies and then you have animal bodies and how does that work? None of that really matters at this level, does it? It's all
yeah.
relevant. And that's what he means by radical forgiveness. It takes you to the ultimate top level in any situation, gets you to see the truth and just drop all the illusions, discard them. Say, well, there's no point in entertaining these and trying to make sense of these, because the point is they don't make sense. None of them make sense. None of it makes any sense at all. It only makes sense to the ego trying to justify its separate existence. But from pure formless awareness of perfect love, the entire system is insane. It makes no sense at all. So you can safely drop it all, let go of it all, and just return your mind back to this awareness. And that's all he's saying. A very, very, very simple teaching, isn't it? It's extraordinarily simple, which is why it works. You're not getting caught up into any of the complexities and the complications that come with the ego system. But it does require a lot of discipline to go, okay, I'm not going to get sucked into any of this kind of thinking. I'm just going to go to the truth. And I'm going to raise my mind back up into pure formless awareness of perfect love, no matter what illusions are confronting me. That's the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of the dream, which we call forgiveness, or letting go in our alternative language. And it just requires a very rigorous discipline to do that and not get sucked into trying to figure out these illusions and make them real and spin them into different forms, which the ego is very adept at doing. We just got to avoid that temptation and always go back to this awareness by allowing the Holy Spirit to just remind us that none of this is true. That's all it's saying. None of the projections of separation are true in any way, shape, or form. So don't believe in any of it. Easier said than done, isn't it? Because apparently...
Oh, yes, but I get what you're
real.
saying, yes.
Yeah. So then whether it's manifesting as human drama or pets, You know, if animals, I've got a whole lot of animals here, or plants, or anything in this world, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. It really doesn't matter at all. It's just another part of the illusion that is trying to make itself real in our awareness, but it isn't real. None of it's true and none of it's real. How do we know that? Well, we can just observe that none of these things last.
Yeah,
None of these forms last. You know, every animal dies, every plant dies. Everything here is subject to the cycle of birth and death. And that cycle, in some cases, might take thousands of years. If it's a tree, you know, some trees can last 2,000-3,000 years, but still, you know, it's going to die at some point. So it's clearly not eternal. It's not real because it's not permanent. The only thing that's permanent is that which has no form, i.e. pure formless awareness, and that can never be destroyed. So this teaching is saying, well, go there. You know, go into formless awareness that is not subject to decay and death, and there you'll find the truth, and there you'll find happiness and peace and love and joy and everything you truly want. But to do that, you have to let go of form. You can't have an awareness of form and have pure formless awareness, can you?
Yeah.
They are clearly opposite. So there's this, you know, dichotomy, and you must choose. You can't make formless awareness somehow reconcile with awareness of form.
Yeah.
They don't, and they never will. And that's a very clear teaching then. There's no confusion. It's just like, well, you've got to let go of any belief in form in order to be truly healed and come into pure formless awareness of perfect love. There's no alternative to, you know, you can't mix and match these and somehow try and make that work. We've been trying to do that for thousands of years. Potentially, you know, millions of years. We try and somehow fudge it and say, well, I could have a little bit of this and I could have my separate self, and that's somehow going to work. And it's a compromised solution, which the ego has attempted over and over again. And then we incarnate as human beings and we try and live a spiritual life and try and find peace and love and joy in an insane world, and we fail time and again. That, you know, it's only when we truly let go and we awaken to this beyond the body that we start truly awakening, which is what this section is saying, going beyond the body. Okay, so happy to move to number 4 then.
Yeah, that was very clear. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, John, just read it again. Just in the last sentence, there'll be Son of God becomes extension of perfect love. Otherwise, nothing much to translate. So,
In this, my mind is clearly delusional. It cannot attack, but it maintains it can, and uses what it does to hurt my body to prove it can. My mind cannot really attack, but it can deceive itself. And this is all it does when it believes it has attacked my body. It can project its guilt, but it will not get rid of it through projection. And though it clearly can misperceive the function of my body, it cannot change its function from what the remembrance of perfect love establishes it to be. My body was not made by love, yet love does not condemn it and can use it lovingly, respecting what the extension of perfect love has made and using it to free its extension from all illusions. So he's saying here that the mind can deceive itself. It can project guilt onto the body, but actually the body isn't really affected by it because the body isn't. It's just a vehicle. And although
because of any effect, you know, it doesn't really matter because the truth is true.
Yes, because the truth remains always that we are at one. So we may try and make the body, blame the body for things, but we are only deceiving.
Yet, I mean, this is important. From number 7, my body was not made by love, yet love does not condemn it and can use it lovingly, respecting what the extension of perfect love has made and using it to free its extension from all illusions. So this is the genius of the Holy Spirit that says, I can use this, although it's not true. I'm not going to condemn it and go, well, this is just terrible and just kill the body. I mean, then we just all commit suicide, wouldn't we? Just kill it and, go back to pure formless awareness. Love says, oh, okay, so you made a mistake. You've invented this whole body thing and a whole world in which the body can live, but it's okay. We can use that. We can use the body. We can use the illusion to heal your mind. Through the body and its experiences, you can learn again the truth about who you really are, and that's the real purpose of the body. And you can use your body to extend love to others. So now it has a holy purpose. Now the Holy Spirit, which didn't made it, is using what the ego made for its purposes. And that's a very profound shift, isn't it? It's like the body was made for projection of guilt and for sickness and attack and death, and yet it can be reinterpreted to be an instrument of love, a vehicle for learning and extending love, which is massively profound. Its entire purpose changes then. And that's what spiritual awakening means, that the purpose of the body is transformed, and now it becomes quite functional and useful for a time. It's not forever. The body is ultimately going to die, but it's dedicated to a worthy purpose and cause, rather than just perpetuating the sick thought system of the ego. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think just one other point on this is that you will not get rid of your guilt through projection. So what the ego is trying to do is say, I'm not the guilty one, someone else is guilty, so I'll project that onto that someone or something else. Now that might be onto your own body. So the body is guilty and then I'll punish my body. So that's one way it does it. Or it can project out the guilt onto another person and say, well, you're the guilty one. God's going to punish you now. And so I'll accuse and blame you as a projection of my guilt. The problem is that doesn't get rid of the guilt. The ego tells you it does, but it just fosters the guilt. At the core of accusation and blame and any attack is guilt. You're perpetuating the guilt by thinking those thoughts and feeling these emotions. So you don't get rid of it, you just perpetuate and make it worse. And the ego just keeps trying to get rid of its guilt, but in fact just makes it worse and strengthens the guilt, which is why any kind of accusation and blame and attack simply doesn't work. It's not going to free you from guilt. It's going to reinforce the guilt, and it's going to make you even more enslaved. So it's a strategy that's just never going to work, which is why Yeshua's saying, well, just give it up. You've got to look at your guilt and your sin, and instead of projecting them out, recognize that they're not there. They're not justified. You never separated from God, so you're not guilty of doing anything. That's the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of the whole mad dream of separation. How can you be guilty if you never really separated? To which the ego has no answer. If you really understand that, then that's the end of guilt and sin. But it makes us forget this and focus on form and what someone's done, and then go, well, look at what they've done or haven't done, and therefore they're guilty and they deserve my condemnation and my attack. And it tries to get us to keep projecting on the level of form onto the body, rather than going into this awareness of ourselves. Okay. Let's go on to number 5. So I think read a bit to translate here. So read this in the original and the alternative from paragraph 5 onwards. So it's Elaine, I think.
Yeah. Do I not want to have the instruments of separation reinterpreted as a means for awakening and used for the purposes of love? Do I not want to welcome and support the shift from fantasies of vengeance to freedom from them? My perception of the body can clearly be sick, but I must not project this onto the body. For my wish to make destructive what cannot destroy can have no real effect at all.
And I'll read from 5. So John, if you can read the original, and Elaine read the alternative.
What God created is only what he would have it be, being his will.
What pure formless awareness of perfect love extends is only what it wants its extension to be, being its awareness.
You cannot make his will destructive.
I cannot make its awareness destructive.
You can make fantasies in which your will conflicts with his, but that is all.
I can make fantasies in which my awareness seems to conflict with pure formless awareness of perfect love, but that is all.
Okay, and from the actually you probably don't need just read the whole thing from the top. It'll be helpful, yeah. Just to kind of summarize it and then any comments on it.
I do not want to have the instruments of separation reinterpreted as a means for awakening and used for the purposes of love. Do I not want to welcome and support the shift from fantasies of vengeance to freedom from them? My perception of the body can clearly be sick, but I must not project this onto the body. For my wish to make destructive what cannot destroy can have no real effect at all. What pure formless awareness of perfect love extends is only what it wants its extension to be, being its awareness. I cannot make its awareness destructive. I can make fantasies in which my awareness seems to conflict with pure formless awareness of perfect love, but that is all.
Okay, so what's he saying?
We don't want to have the instruments of separation reinterpreted as a means for awakening and used for the purposes of love. So do we not welcome
do I not want to? Surely I want this. Do I want to welcome? Do I want to welcome and support the shift from fantasies of vengeance to freedom from them? You're saying, like, surely, like, if you look at it honestly, and the ego is a nightmare. Why would you want to hold on to that when there's a way of perceiving it differently and freeing your mind from all of this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's all just a fantasy. Like, whatever you in a fantasy, in a dream, you can seemingly deny pure formless awareness of perfect love, but that's all it is. It's a fantasy. It's a dream. It's not real. Fortunately, because if it were real, then we would really have destroyed pure formless awareness of perfect love, and there'd be no way home. There'd be no way out of it. That's what the ego is telling us. This is it. This is reality. And there's no other reality. Your separate identity in the body, in the world, the material world is all there is. And, so then try and somehow make that work. And what most people then do is they seek for pleasure. They try and find some kind of gratification with pleasure, with things that they value in the world. And of course, that fails them ultimately because the world is a fantasy. It's not true. And it doesn't deal at all with the the underlying guilt and fear and sin and attack that and hatred that underlies the making of this world. It doesn't heal that at all. So that just carries on until you're willing to recognize what he's saying as true. Say, okay, it's all false, it's all a fantasy. And I've just been projecting all the stuff onto my body, onto other people's bodies, as a way of trying to get rid of it. But actually what I've got to do is I've got to face it in my mind. I've got to really look at my own guilt and the products of it, fear and attack thoughts, and I've got to confront those, and I've got to let them go where they are, which is in my mind. That's the only way out of this insane dream I've got myself into. If I project that all onto the body and I try and somehow heal it there, I'm removing the problem. I'm taking the problem elsewhere, where it's not, and I can't solve it there, which is obviously what the ego is trying to do. It doesn't want us to solve the problem, so that's why it projects it somewhere else. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you're not even a mind, think about it in terms of the integral model. Let's go back to this. Very cunningly, what the ego is telling us, back to that diagram. The ego says you're a body and you're not a mind. So at the extreme of the scientific materialist paradigm, it's really saying the only thing that's real is the body and the material world. So your consciousness is a product of your brain function, and really it denies the interior states. It just says, well, the world is this objective, flat, objective material world. Well, what better way to protect itself than to do that? Because if you're not even a mind, and there is no mind, then how can you change your mind? Do you get it? That's what the ego is saying. How is it possible to change your mind if you don't even have one? And if your mind is just a product of your body, and all of this is some kind of genetic accident, we just happen to have a body, and this all happened by some kind of random accident, and now we don't really have minds, we're just a product of brain function. How can you then change your mind? Well, you can't. That's the ego's story. And so then its delusion is protected. And the thought system, which is held in mind, is protected from really being examined and corrected. And that's why it has such a focus on the body. So what we've got to do is we've got to deny the body and all of these distractions, and we've got to go back into this quadrant, into mind, and say, well, let's really look at our thoughts and our emotions, our memories, and states of mind and perceptions and sensations, and go beyond those. Recognize the source of those, and anything that's not true, let it go in our minds. That's the answer, isn't it? Then you're going into a place where you can actually make a significant change. The only way to be the change in the world is to change your mind about the world. So change these thoughts and emotions and memories and states of mind, which is what Gandhi's saying in this quote. Okay. Happy with number 5 then?
Yeah, it's good.
John?
Yep.
Yeah, so if you can read number 6. Yeah, not much to translate except for the last sentence or two. So on paragraph 5, you can read it in both, but otherwise just read it the alternative. It is insane to use my body.
It is insane to use my body as the scapegoat for guilt, directing its attacks and blaming it for what I wanted it to do. It is impossible to act out fantasies, for it is still the fantasies I want, and they have nothing to do with what the body does. The body does not dream of them, and they only make it a liability where it could be an asset. Do we go to the original 5?
Yeah. Yeah, nothing there. Just you're gonna do the last one, 8.
Okay. The fantasies have made my body my enemy, weak, vulnerable and treacherous, worthy of the hate that I project onto it. How has this served? I have identified with this thing I hate, the instrument of vengeance and the perceived source of my guilt. I have done this to a thing that has no meaning, proclaiming it to be the dwelling place of perfect love's extension and turning it against the extension.
Yeah, so then just read the read number 8, Elaine, in the original.
You have done this to a thing that has no meaning, proclaiming it to be the dwelling place of God's Son, and turning it against him.
And then John, just read number 8 again in the alternative.
I have done this to a thing that has no meaning, proclaiming it to be the dwelling place of perfect love's extension and turning it against the extension.
Yeah, so thoughts on that?
Well, he's pointing out that we've deceived ourselves many times, blamed, but trying to project blame onto our body, and it hasn't worked. And encouraging us to stop doing the same thing.
This thing has no meaning. You know, it's just a vehicle. It's an illusion made up by the ego to convince us that we really are separate. We really have destroyed perfect love, but it has no meaning and no ultimate purpose. And now, instead of seeing it, you know, in its truth, we see it as the dwelling place of perfect love's extension. This is our home. This is, you know, this is where we are. This is who we are. Again, many teachings say, well, the soul has to have a home. The soul's home is in the body. They try and make the body real. In that way, it's body, mind, and soul, or body, mind, and spirit, and it's all reality. And there's a fundamental contradiction in that. Well, you know, if love is eternal and love never dies, then how can it have created a body that is doomed to die? How's that possible then? This is the paradox, the contradiction that, you know, any traditional teaching and any traditional religion doesn't solve, does it? They can't really explain that. God is eternal love, unconditional love, and yet, you know, God has created a body in which, and a world in which we come and we must seemingly suffer and die. Like, how does that work? And traditional religion doesn't solve that problem. You have to have this, you know, the metaphysics clear, which is what the Course does. You know, non-dual teaching is the only teaching that will solve that problem. So, well, it's either real or it's unreal. So the body and this whole domain is simply an unreal miscreation of the mind that has nothing to do with truth. It's actually all just false. And because it's false, you can let it go and come into an awareness of the truth. That's possible. The truth is still there. But you must correct your mind. While you're here, you must practice this radical forgiveness, or letting go of all of your false beliefs about the body and its identity and everything that you've used it for. You need to drop all of that and just recognize that only the mind is true. That you dwell in the mind, capital mind, or awareness, as that awareness, and the body is just not necessary in that awareness. In fact, the body is a denial of that pure formless awareness. So yeah, very, very clear again, and he's talking here about how we misperceive the body and how we misuse it, which we must become aware of if we're going to correct it. Because this is how the ego maintains itself. We're not aware of our misuse of the body. It just seems to be normal. What he's describing here, acting out the fantasies of guilt, projecting things onto the body. This is so common that it seems to be normal. And we just take it for granted. And then everyone's asleep and they think that insanity is normal. And it requires a mind that's able to see beyond that, to free itself from that cave, using the analogy of the cave, Plato's cave. It requires a mind that's able to question the images on the screen. Say, no, this doesn't make sense. There's something wrong here. Turn around and free itself from the chains of all these false beliefs. And question, am I even in a body? Is this world even real? Are the bodies that I'm seeing even real? Most people are not capable, seemingly, of doing that. It requires a mind that's willing to, question everything to do that, which is what this course is asking us to do. It says this course asks you to question every value you've ever held, every belief you've ever held. It's that profound and radical. All right, so happy to go on to number 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So this is the host of God. Just read first 2 sentences in the original alternative, and then the rest in the alternative. So can't remember whose turn it is, whichever way you want to do it.
I'll do it. This is the host. This is the host of perfect love that I have made.
Yeah, so just read the original. John, we're reading the original.
I'm going to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the host of God that you have made. This is the host of perfect love that I have made. And neither God nor his most holy Son can enter an abode that harbors hate. And where you have sown the seeds of vengeance, violence, and death. And neither pure formless awareness of perfect love nor its most innocent extension can enter a mind that harbors hate, and in which I have sown the seeds of vengeance, violence, and death. This thing you made to serve your guilt stands between you and other minds. This body I made to serve my guilt stands between me and other minds.
Yeah, I'm just reading the alternative now. There's not much to translate.
Okay. Our minds are joined, but I do not identify with them. Instead, I perceive myself locked in a separate prison, removed and unreachable, as incapable of reaching out as of being reached. I hate this prison I have made and want to destroy it. But I do not want to escape from it, leaving it unharmed and without my guilt projected onto it.
Yeah. So what's he saying here?
He's saying that spirit can't enter into a place where there is where the presence of separation dominates, the belief in separation dominates. And the body we have made actually is our point of separation between us and others.
So I hate this prison. I think we've all had, we all know what that feels like. We're just like, oh, I can't stand it. Like, I hate this place. I hate this body. I hate this life. And then, the natural tendency is to want to destroy it. So that's suicide. I want to kill my body. I just want to kill myself because I can't stand it anymore. I think we've all been there. If you're on a spiritual path, you probably have been there. Otherwise, why would you try and find a better way? We're saying, so we do that, but we do not want to escape from it, leaving it unharmed and without my guilt projected onto it. Okay? So you don't have to harm the body. That doesn't serve anything. hating it, harming it, trying to destroy it. Just escape from it by letting it go, by letting go of your belief in it, leaving it unharmed without my guilt projected onto it. It's just a vehicle. It's just carrying your mind for a while around this world, but you know, it can be escaped quite easily if you just follow this guidance. So you're going to live in it for a while. Doesn't mean you're just going to suddenly you know, ascend and the body's going to be dropped. You live in it, you know, for the remainder of your life here, but you live in a way that doesn't emphasize the body, in a way that doesn't imprison you, in a way you don't have to hate the prison if you don't perceive it as a prison. So you recognize that it's just a vehicle which allows you to experience and extend love in this world. It's useful for, you know, for that purpose and nothing else. Then you don't perceive it as a prison. You don't hate it. It becomes a useful, functional vehicle or instrument for the extension of love while you're here for a while. And that's the correct interpretation of the body that the Holy Spirit is trying to get us to accept, and just drop all of the projection of guilt and hatred onto it. And then the body doesn't need to get sick. Your body doesn't need to age. Your body doesn't need to get sick. Body doesn't need to die. You know, all of those seemingly normal processes that happen to bodies can be largely transcended. Maybe the body's still going to seemingly age and die because that's a kind of a meta program, but it really doesn't bother you. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't matter to you anymore. You're not concerned with it. I think that's the key point. Okay. That makes sense. Anything else to add to that, John? Okay. So let's move on then. All right. So Elaine, if you can read number 8, just reading the alternative.
Yeah. Yet only in this way can I escape. The home of vengeance is not mine, and the place I set aside to house my hate is not a prison, but an illusion of myself. The body is a limited imposed on the universal communication that is an eternal property of awareness.
Yeah, the body is a limit imposed. No, universal communication. So it's part of the limits of awareness or negative awareness of the ego.
But the communication is eternal. Awareness reaches itself. It is not made up of different parts which reach each other. It does not go out. Within itself, it has no limits, and there is nothing outside it. It encompasses everything. It encompasses encompasses me entirely, me within it, and it within me. There has never been anything else, anywhere, or ever in truth.
Yeah. What's he saying here?
Could you just bring it down so I can see the full paragraph? So this is the only way we can escape. The home of vengeance is not our real house, and it's a house of hate, and it's not a prison, but it's just an illusion. It's just the body's just a limited, imposed, universal communication. And that is the eternal property of awareness. Awareness reaches to itself. So it's not
it's part of the negation of this capital awareness. In the original, it says eternal property of mind, and I capitalized that, eternal property of awareness, capital awareness. It's part of the block to that awareness. It's saying you're not pure formless awareness, you're a body. It's clearly a denial of pure formless awareness by definition, isn't it? And you see the complete irreconcilable nature of formless awareness and form. How can formless awareness also be a body which has form? It wouldn't be formless awareness then, would it? So it's a contradiction of pure formless awareness, which is what he's trying to say. But actually, this awareness is whole and complete. It reaches to itself. It's whole and complete within itself. It encompasses me entirely. This is who I am and what I am. And actually, in truth, the body has no place in that. The body is just a departure from that, a block to that awareness. And there has never really been anything else anywhere or ever. So your delusion that you're a body is nowhere and nothing, and has never really existed. Yeah, that's the simple truth. But to realize that while you seemingly in a body is the art of this. Body seems to be very real in our perception. That's the way it's designed to be. But it's only your mind that gives it that reality and that power to affect you. Yeah. So anything else to add to that?
No, that's clear.
John, any comments or questions?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay, so number 9. Body is outside. Let's read. This has got quite a bit, so let's read that in the original and the alternative. So, Elaine, if you can read the original and John reads the alternative. Yeah. Kindly.
The body is outside you, but seems to surround you, shutting you off from others and keeping you apart from them, and them from you.
The body is outside me and only seems to surround me, shutting me off from others and keeping me apart from them and them from me.
Oh,
it
is not there.
Not there.
It is not really there.
There is no barrier between God and his Son, nor can his Son be separated from himself except in illusions.
There is no barrier between pure formless awareness of perfect love and its extension, nor can its extension be separated from itself except in illusions.
This is not his reality, though he believes it is.
It is not its reality, though it believes it is.
Sorry, I didn't hear John there. Did you say number 4 there, John?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear you there, sorry. So 5. Yet this could only be if God were wrong.
Yet this could only be true if pure formless awareness of perfect love were wrong.
God would have had to create differently and to have separated himself from his Son to make this possible.
Pure formless awareness of perfect love would have had to extend differently and to have separated itself from its extension to make this possible.
He would have had to create different things and to establish different orders of reality, only some of which were love.
It would have had to create different things and to establish different orders of reality, only some of which were love.
Yet love must be forever like itself, changeless forever and forever without alternative.
Yet love must be forever like itself, changeless forever and forever without alternative.
And so it is.
And so it is.
You cannot put a barrier around yourself because God placed none between himself and you.
I cannot put a barrier around myself because pure forms of awareness of perfect love place no barrier between itself and me.
Okay, and then read it in the alternative.
Want to do
John,
that later?
on the top.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. The body is outside me and only seems to surround, shutting me off from others and keeping me apart from them and them from me. It is not really there. There is no barrier between pure formless awareness of perfect love and its extension, nor can its extension be separated from itself except in illusions. This is not its reality, though it believes it is. Yet this could only be true if pure formless awareness of perfect love were wrong. Pure formless awareness of perfect love would have had to extend differently and to have separated itself from its extension to make this possible. It would have had to create different things and to establish different orders of reality, only some of which were love. Yet love must be forever like itself, changeless forever and forever without alternative. And so it is. I cannot put a barrier around myself because pure formless awareness of perfect love placed no barrier between itself and me. So it's saying here that we may believe that we are separate, but that is never ever the case. It was never the case. There is no barrier. There is no separation. Because how could love separate from its extension?
It's really as simple as that, isn't it? What he's saying is well, this explains away the entire dream of separation. It's simply not possible. It never happened. It's not possible. It's just so mind-blowing for us because we believed it is possible. Our entire reality, our existence here is based on the idea that it is possible to separate from love. This is fundamentally going against that and saying, no, it's not possible. So your entire existence here is illusory. It's false. It's so radical, isn't it? It's so mind-blowing. And that's why people struggle with it. So it goes entirely against everything that they've believed up to this point in their lives. And yet, it's the truth. So, it's the only way out. If you want to believe in the ego's thought system, I think we can all see, having studied this course for as long as we have, that there's no hope there. There's no way out of the trap of the world and of the body and of this reality, which is so difficult and dysfunctional, and ultimately causes pain, suffering, and death. If you don't believe what Yeshua is saying, how are you going to find your way out of that? And the answer is you're not. You just carry on in the cycle of birth and death, incarnating, living, suffering, struggling, dying, and you just keep doing that over and over because that's what your mind has condemned itself to. Until you come to this awareness and start accepting what he's saying is true. As he said, the truth shall make you free. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But the radical nature of his teachings really didn't make it into the Gospels. He says these things, but what he actually meant in the metaphysics kind of got stripped out. It really didn't make it in. And so you get these teachings on but the underlying metaphysics isn't explained, and so most people don't really get it. Fortunately, he's now given us an like very, very clear teaching, like explaining what the metaphysics are and the whole thought system in the course. We're incredibly lucky to be reading his teachings directly written down. He didn't write anything when he was well, nothing recorded anyway. When he lived, he's waited 2,000 years to write this book and bring it through when the world's ready for it. I mean, 2,000 years ago, if he'd written this, no one was ready for this, were they? It's just like it would have been. They struggled just to understand his parables, never mind, the metaphysics of non-duality and that this is all an illusion. He was just way ahead of his time. So it's taken, this amount of time for the world to be ready. And here we are studying his true teachings. We're very privileged, I think. Okay. So any other thoughts on that, John?
No, that's good with me.
Happy to move on. Okay, so number 10. Again, I think but to translate here, so read it in the original and the alternative. Just switch. So, John, if you read the original, Elaine, read the alternative.
You can stretch out your hand and reach to heaven.
I can stretch out my hand and reach to the state of pure formless awareness.
You whose hand is joined with your brother's have begun to reach beyond the body, but not outside yourself. To reach your shared identity together.
I, whose hand is joined with my companions, have begun to reach out beyond the body, but not outside myself, to reach our shared identity together.
Could this be outside you?
Could this be outside me?
Where God is not.
Where pure formless awareness of perfect love does not exist.
Is he a body, and did he create you as he is not, and where he cannot be?
Where pure formless awareness of perfect love does not exist.
Just check out what's going wrong there. Could this be where God is not? Yeah. Where pure formless awareness of perfect love does not exist. Yeah, fine. And number 5.
Oh yeah.
Is he a body, and did he create you as he is not, and where he cannot be?
Is pure formless awareness of perfect love a body, and did it create me as it is not, and where it cannot be?
You are surrounded only by him.
I am surrounded only by it.
What limits can there be on you whom he encompasses?
What limits can be on I whom it encompasses?
Is that on I or me? On you. He encompasses. Maybe that should be a me. And there be on me that encompasses, yeah, not I. Because it's the object, not subject to the same. What limits can there be on me whom it encompasses? Yeah. So then Elaine, read it from the top in the alternative, please.
I can stretch out my hand and reach to the state of pure formless awareness. I, whose hand is joined with my companions, have begun to reach beyond the body, but not outside myself, to reach our shared identity together. Could this be outside me, where pure formless awareness of perfect love does not exist? Is pure formless awareness of perfect love a body? And did it create me as it is not, and where it cannot be? I am surrounded only by it. What limits can there be on me when it encompasses?
On whom it encompasses, yeah. Yeah, so what's he saying there in essence, in summary?
Well, it's just that we all share the same identity with this state of pure formless awareness, and we just need to reach out, and we're all joined together. And what limits can there be when we're all encompassed by this shared identity? It's not outside of us, it's we're all here together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're really just reminding us that, these limits are just illusion. They're mind created. They don't really exist. There is only this one awareness. So it's such a simple teaching. Through this whole course. But he's got to tell it to us over and over and over again because we're so fixated on the illusion. Our minds have got so entrenched into a false belief that he's got to tell us multiple times, isn't it? Over and over and over again. Of the truth in all these different ways, in the lessons and the text, to just keep reminding us of the simple truth. Okay, so number 11, happy to move on.
Yeah.
Everyone has experienced, so nothing much to translate here. So let's go straight into the alternative then. Save a bit of time. Yeah, so John, if you can read that in the alternative, please.
Everyone has experienced what they would call a sense of being transported beyond themselves. This feeling of liberation far exceeds the dream of freedom sometimes hoped for in special relationships. It is a sense of actual escape from limitations. If I will consider what this transportation really entails, I will realize that it is a sudden unawareness of the body and a joining of myself in something else in which my awareness enlarges to encompass it. It becomes part of me as I unite with it, and both become whole as neither is perceived as separate. What really happens is that I have given up the illusion of a limited awareness and lost my fear of union. The love that instantly replaces it extends to what has freed me. And unites with it. And while this lasts, I am certain of my identity, and I do not want to limit it. I have escaped from fear to peace, asking no questions of reality, but merely accepting it. I have accepted this instead of the body, and have let myself be one with something beyond it, simply by not letting my awareness be limited by my body. So it's saying here that everyone has experienced a sense of liberation at some stage in their life where they feel much larger than their usual selves, and they feel transported almost into a different dimension and free of limitation.
And that's what Abraham Maslow would call a peak experience, or mystic experience, which he He maintained with the same. He just changed the language because people weren't that open in psychological terms to the idea of mysticism. But it was the same thing. You have a sense of an expanded experience, expanded awareness, and one such experience can completely change your life. You have one expanded experience like that, it shows you another reality. It can profoundly change everything in that moment. And this is what he's pointing to, a peak or mystic experience of something beyond the body, of transcending all limits. And once you've had one such experience, you can never fully believe in the ego's limits again, because you've experienced freedom from those. Even if you come back to awareness of those limits, you remember that there is a state of awareness that's completely free of them because you've experienced it. This is why ultimately this journey is experiential, because no one can tell you that. It's only when you experience it that you go, oh, I get it. That there is actually a state like that because I've actually experienced it. And that's what knowing this, being the mystic, is to know this experientially rather than just theoretically understand it. Okay, and then there's just the other interesting point here, as he says, this feeling of liberation far exceeds the dream of freedom, sometimes hoped for in special relationships. So what we do, ego very cunningly says, well, when you find that special person, then you'll feel free, you'll feel light, everything's going to be great. And it projects all of that onto the person. And then we seek that because we think that person represents freedom. And for a while, for the honeymoon period, they call it, the first few months, maybe that seems to be true, but it doesn't last, does it? As we know. So then reality sets in and the person doesn't meet your expectations. How can they possibly meet the expectation of ultimate freedom? And then you get disappointed. So the ego tries to redirect the true mystic or peak experience and tries to get you to find it in a special relationship, which is a classic ego defense, rather than saying, well, let's just find it internally, directly with in my mind, in my own awareness, usually happening through spiritual practice, being open at least to these kinds of experiences happening. Spiritual practice tends to open you up to this kind of peak or mystic experience happening. Okay, so he's pointing here to the peak experience or the mystic experience and the transformational impact of that. Happy though that? Number 11, should we go to number 12?
Yeah.
Okay, Elaine, can you just read this in alternative?
This can occur regardless of the physical distance that seems to be between me and what I join with of our respective positions in space, differences in size and seeming quality. Time is not irrelevant. It can occur with something past, present, or anticipated. The something can take the form of anything and be anywhere. A sound, a sight, a thought, a memory, and even a general idea without specific reference. Yet in every case I join it without reservation because I love it and want to be one with it. And so I rush to meet it, letting my limits melt away, suspending all the laws my body obeys, and gently letting them go.
Yeah, so there's something he's talking about is something in the illusion that you join with. Take the form of anything, it can be anywhere. And let's make that's short. Let's make it lowercase. Something beyond it. Let's not be one with that could be something beyond it. I'm not letting my awareness be limited by my body. Joining of something else which my awareness enlarges. Largest to encompass it. Yeah, okay. So I get why I put something can take the form. Let's keep that as capital. Of anything, be anywhere. A sound, a sight, a thought, a memory, even a general idea without specific reference. And yet in every case, I join the something, it, so that's why I put capital, because the something refers to the eternal, something beyond this world. But it often takes a different form. And so we see how the Holy Spirit works through sounds, through sights, thoughts, memories, a general idea. These are the miracles of synchronicities that come into our awareness, and it takes a form that is helpful and useful in our dream. That has a, kind of a miraculous or synchronistic quality to it. And he's saying, just rush to meet it, join it, let your own limits melt away, and suspend all the laws your body obeys, gently let them go. So be aware of these things that happen. Like, we had an example today, Elaine, of like, I thought of the Scarlet Pimpernel earlier today, and then you mentioned, it's like, well, that's a something, isn't it? It's a form.
Interesting.
It's an idea. Just an idea. It's a literary reference to a character, which we've both read those books, and yet it's pointing us to something deeper. It's a something that is intangible. It's pointing us to this dimension beyond this world, and this is what he's referring to in this paragraph.
And it's
So
interesting. It's just interesting that John's just arrived, so that's quite interesting. Because I referred to John as the Scarlet Pimpernel, and and there he's arrived, just like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's no longer elusive. The truth can be found.
Yes, it's all.
I must have heard you, Elaine.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
The something comes into it's a pointer, isn't it? It's like,
it is interesting how it works.
Okay, it's just an idea, but I have it, you have it on the same day. I've thought it, you mention it. And then John turns up, because John, you have been elusive. You haven't been in these sessions for months. So, all of it kind of points you to something beyond. That's the transcendent reality or awareness. And he's saying, well, pay attention, whatever form it comes, pay attention to it, because it's pointing you to this ultimate reality we call something that's actually beyond the form. The form is just being used to as a signpost to that. And that helps you to let all your limits melt away and believe in this transcendent reality beyond the body and all the laws of the body. Okay? Happy with that?
Yeah.
These are miracles, synchronicities, signposts, miraculous events that he's saying, be aware of them, pay attention to them, because they are pointing you to something beyond this world, which is why they are significant. Okay, and then if you do, you start living in the domain of the miraculous. You start going, well, there's something else going on here. It's not just flatland, as Ken Wilber calls it, not just this material world. There's something deeper, and I'm starting to see that coming through, and it's manifesting in these various forms in this world. And that's how we start to become convinced of its presence initially. You don't just go straight to pure formless awareness. It needs to take these forms as part of our education, of our learning of it. And that it can be quite a beautiful phase, miracles, synchronicities. This, as Deepak Chopra says, this is the second symptom of an awakening, that these kinds of signs start happening more and more in your life. That's how one of the ways you're awakening. The other one is to just stop worrying so much about stuff. All right. So let's go on to number 13, second last paragraph, by the way, of the sections. We're getting there. So let's read that in the alternative. Whose turn is it? Is it John?
I think it's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
There is no violence. There is no violence at all in this escape. The body is not attacked, but simply properly perceived. It does not limit me merely because I do not want it to do so. I am not really lifted out of it. It cannot contain me. I go where I want to be, gaining, not losing, a sense of self. In these moments of release from physical restrictions, I experience much of what happens in the wholly aware moment. The lifting of the barriers of time and space. The sudden experience of peace and joy. And above all, the lack of awareness of the body and of the questioning whether or not all this is possible. So it's saying here that there's no harm, there's no hurt involved in this process of letting go, of letting go of the body. It's merely a realization of what is true, has always been true, and a lifting of the barriers of time and space that we have inflicted on ourselves.
Yeah, letting go of the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, and then what reveals itself is love's presence, because that was always there. It was just blocked from your awareness. And, he's pointing us here very clearly to the mystic experience, saying, you can and will have these experiences if you open your mind to them. And in these experiences, you experience a glimpse of heaven. It's a taste. It's like a foretaste, a teaser, if you like, of heaven in these expanded, this would be called an expanded moment. Satori, they call it in the East, a moment of kind of insight, a peak experience, a mystic experience. There's different terminology for it in different spiritual traditions, but it's the same thing. And he's pointing us very clearly to that and saying, well, this is what can happen. Well, I've had a few, but the one most profound one was really the body disappeared from my awareness. And I went into pure formless awareness for a while, a few minutes maybe. I don't know. There was no sense of time. But that, really profoundly changed my life, because for the first time, I think I realized the truth of what I'd been learning theoretically for 15 years, that, there was this transcendent awareness, and I'd actually experienced it. And in that expanded awareness, there was no body, there was no form, the world disappeared, all my problems disappeared, my self disappeared. There was no separate self there. The character of Jono just disappeared for that brief time. But that gave me a glimpse of what heaven is. So, well, that, that must be there because I've actually experienced it. And then I came back and, I was changed forever. It fundamentally changed my awareness, my understanding of life. And then, very shortly afterwards began to teach the art of letting go course. John, you joined that course about a week after I'd had that experience.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that it helped me to take my teaching to a different level of understanding and insight, because I'd had that experience. If I hadn't had that experience, I don't know, would I be doing this? Maybe not, maybe on some level, but something would have been missing from it. So that's what these experiences do. They take us to another level. They show us this eternal reality experientially. And once we have one of those experiences, we become a mystic. You know experientially. It's not just theoretical anymore, because you've actually experienced it. And so he's inviting us to be open to that experience, because it can happen at any point. for anyone. You just don't know when. If you keep practicing, you know, you invite these kinds of experiences. I had to go on a Vipassana retreat, and it was a culmination of all of the studying and, you know, spiritual work I've done came, you know, into effect in that moment. So if you haven't had one yet, then just keep practicing and keep working, and you know, inviting it to come in. You just never know when it will happen. Okay. So Lane, if you can read the last paragraph. It is possible because I want it. You can just read an alternative.
It is possible because I want it. The sudden expansion of awareness that takes place with my desire for it is the irresistible appeal the wholly aware moment holds. It calls to me to be myself within its safe embrace. There the laws of limitation are lifted for me to welcome me to openness of mind and freedom. I come to this state of refuge where I can be myself in peace, not through destruction, not through breaking out, but merely by a quiet melting in. For peace will join me there simply because I have been willing to let go of the limits I have placed upon love and joined it where it is and where it led me, in answer to its gentle call to be at peace. It's just saying that this is possible for all of us if we want it. This expansion of awareness, it's very irresistible, and it's wholly aware moment holds. And it's, yeah, very nice. It sounds very comforting, and just, yeah, just follow your path and you will not fail to find this peace.
Yeah, so whenever you do any spiritual practice, you're saying, I want this. I'm inviting this in. It may not come straight away, but you're going to the very core and you're saying, you know, the prayer of my heart in my spiritual practice is for this awareness. I'm opening my mind, I'm opening my heart to this awareness. I'm inviting it in, I'm welcoming it in. And if you keep doing that, it's no surprise that it will come at some point. Maybe gradually, initially you don't necessarily, you just feel a bit more peaceful. There's no fireworks, there's no, oh, wow, like, but if you keep doing that and you keep inviting it in, at some point you know, you may have you know, a really significant expanded or peak experience, as Abraham Maslow called it, which one such experience can profoundly change your life, because then you experience the truth. You go, it's not just a theory anymore. I know that there is this domain of pure formless awareness because I've been there. I've experienced it in practice. And he's saying, well, just be open to that experience. You know, it's possible because you want it. So your desire is now for this expanded awareness. You want only that. The desire is for God, in other words, rather than for the separate self. And that's what it comes down to. You know, changing your mind at that fundamental level about what you want. So if you keep doing that, then you invite this kind of expanded awareness in, and it's no surprise that it will come at some point. You don't know exactly when. That's up to, you know, the Holy Spirit. But you keep inviting it in. You keep welcoming it in whenever you do spiritual practice. So, you know, in the Zen tradition, they say enlightenment is an accident, but spiritual practice makes you accident prone. That's another way of saying the same thing, isn't it? The more you practice, the more prone you are to this kind of expanded awareness happening, seemingly by accident. But, you know, what happened to me, for instance, wasn't really an accident because I'd prepared my whole life for it. And then I'd done, you know, 9 days of intense meditation to prepare for that. So it wasn't an accident. I'd created the circumstances, the right conditions for that kind of expanded peak experience to happen because of my discipline and my dedication to, you know, to spiritual practice. So anyone can do this. It's not rocket science. It's just, the discipline to keep practicing is what invites this expanded awareness in. Okay, so any thoughts, comments, or questions on that?
That's good.
Okay, so let's do the summary. You up for that? Just quickly read it paragraph by paragraph, and then just give a quick summary of that paragraph. Go to the next one. So, John, if you want to read the first one.
There is nothing outside of me, and the state of pure formless awareness is my ultimate realization. As it represents the restoration of my connection to perfect love, pure formless awareness is not a place or condition, but rather an awareness of perfect oneness. There is nothing beyond the oneness. There is nothing beyond this oneness, and nothing else within it. So he's saying here that there is nothing in this world as we see it. Ultimately, the only thing that exists is pure formless awareness and our connection with it. And so heaven isn't a place or a condition, it's an awareness of the perfect oneness that has always been there.
Yeah, which makes it very, accessible and realizable. Well, you don't have to go seeking it outside of yourself. It's already there. It's your own fundamental awareness. You just have to remove the blocks to that awareness. You've got all these blocks in place which prevent you from accessing that awareness. That's then becomes your task. So true spirituality is really just removing those blocks, i.e. it's forgiveness or letting go. It's that simple. And every practice you do is just designed to help you remove these blocks to the awareness of love's presence, whether it's meditation or breath work or a forgiveness process like the 10-step letting go process or cognitive behavioral therapy or whatever you use. It's all just part of that letting go process. Okay, so number 2, Elaine, if you can read that.
The belief that I can give and receive something other than pure formless awareness has caused me to lose touch with this state and my true identity. I have made strange mistakes by projecting guilt onto my body from my mind. However, my body itself is not guilty. It is merely a vehicle that carries out my mind's intentions. I deceive myself if I think I hate my body, for it is my mind that holds on to guilt and wants to remain separate. So it's just saying that, this idea of the body and how we hate it when it's just a vehicle and it just comes from the mind's intentions.
Yeah.
And
So I don't
it's
really
just
body, I hate my mind. It's self-loathing, which is the ego hates itself because it wants to exist, but it hates itself because it's negative. Its existence denies pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is the only true reality, and it's the source of all good. And yet it's denied that in order to exist. And do you see the problem with the ego? You never make it work. Its whole existence is a negative existence. It's purely based on the negation of the truth of love and light and the good and the beautiful and the true, as Plato put it. It negates all of that. Well, how can an entity that negates what is of true value be of any worth? How can it find any kind of self-worth in its existence? So of course it's going to hate itself. And the only way out of this is to let that go and recognize that it's just a delusion. And its projection of its hatred onto the body is simply not real. Okay, minds are joined, but bodies are not. John, if you can read that.
Minds are joined, but bodies are not. The perception of separation arises when I attribute the properties of mind to the body. My fragmented and private mind projects its guilt onto the body. causing it to suffer and die and reinforcing the illusion of separation. Although the mind can create fantasies and direct the body to act them out, it is never satisfied with the body's actions. The mind's attacks on the body increase as it projects more guilt onto it.
Yeah. You're saying how?
So it's saying that minds are joined. Our mind is joined with those, with our companions, and the idea of separation comes when I make out that the body is real. And then the next stage is that I start projecting guilt, which just reinforces the whole illusion being here.
Yeah, so I mean, think of sickness. You know, as we get older, and often sickness starts being more and more part of our lives. The more we focus on that, the more real it seems to be. You know, it's really, sickness is an attack on the body. And then you know, if we believe in that thought system of sickness, we're really just trying to project more and more guilt onto the body. And you know, if we believe that story, the mind becomes increasingly convinced that guilt and sin and death are real. And the more we believe that, the more it takes us down into a downward spiral of death. And you've probably seen this playing out in people as it happens. So yeah, but it doesn't have to happen that way. We can stay clear and calm in our true awareness and just, you know, be unconcerned about all this. So a good example would be Ramana Maharshi. I mean, he had cancer at the end, but his mind was not concerned with the condition of his body. He didn't spiral into some, you know, negative state, and he just was like, well, the body's not even real, and he remained in a state of perfect peace in moksha, even while the body was, you know, dying of cancer. When his disciples were all sad, and he's like, well, why are you sad? I was never a body in the first place. You know, don't identify me as a body. I was always the transcendent self, and now, you know, my body's just being finally expiring, but nothing's really changed. I'm the same as I am, as I've always been. I just won't have a form anymore. So that's how you apply this kind of teaching, and make sure you're not making the body real and increasing the attacks on the body by making the sickness real. And you think about how the medical system operates. You know, the more you suffer in the body, the more treatment, the more defenses it tries to do to try and fix it. But all that does is make the sickness real, and it increases the projection of guilt onto the body. And, you know, this is what passes for wisdom in this world. But you know, in our family, we've had to make a decision and say, well, you know, my dad's having cancer treatment, but stop it. It's not helping him. It hasn't worked. And it's just more and more projection of this guilt onto the body. You know, stop it. Just leave it be and let him find some peace. It doesn't mean his body's going to heal necessarily, but at least his mind will be in a more peaceful state, which, you know, becomes primary. As the body gives out, you know, what do you want? You want peace of mind ultimately. Okay, so next one. However, my mind is delusional in thinking it can attack my body. I'll read this for change. However, my mind is delusional in thinking it can attack my body. It deceives itself by maintaining the illusion of attack, but cannot truly harm my body. Projection of guilt onto my body does not eliminate it. Instead, it perpetuates the cycle of guilt. While my perception of the body can be distorted, I should not project this distortion onto the body itself. Pure formless awareness of perfect love extends only what it wants its extension to be. Okay, so thoughts on that? Anyone, either of you, what's he saying there?
We're saying that we can project our guilt if we so wish, but it's it doesn't do anything. It's just wasting time, really.
Yeah, don't entertain these illusions and realize you're just delusional. It's so helpful to go, okay, that if I'm thinking these ways, to just zoom out of that and go, well, I'm just deluded here. You know, my mind is just deluded and confused, and none of these thoughts really mean anything. You know, this is the correction of the Holy Spirit for all of these delusions. Okay, but he has to make us aware of these delusions and how they play out, so we can become aware of them when they happen, and then let them go. All right, Elaine, if you can read My Body is a Scapegoat.
Using my body as a scapegoat for guilt is insane and futile. Fantasies of vengeance have nothing to do with the body's actions and exist solely in the mind. By hating and identifying with a body I perceive as weak and treacherous, I've turned it against the extension of perfect love. I have made the body a host for hate, preventing pure formless awareness and its innocent extension from entering my mind. So while we're making the body a scapegoat for guilt, what it's saying is it's crazy and it's futile because it's just fantasies of vengeance and it's nothing to do with the body. It's solely the mind. So,
And we have to forget that, aren't we? I mean, when you're sick and you're suffering in the body, very apt to forget that. But when you heal the mind, then all of that can be undone. As we saw with Anita Mojano, you know, there was a profound demonstration of these principles. She healed her mind. Her body was sick because her mind was sick. She went into pure formless awareness. She had, you know, all this healing that happened, and she came back into her body, and her body healed because her mind was no longer sick, and it turned around from, you know, really death's door. Organs were shutting down, and it regenerated because the mind had this profound healing. I mean, that is a really demonstration of the truth of these teachings. That, you know, something like that is possible in this world. Shows us the power of the mind to transcend the limitations of the body. And once you stop projecting your hatred onto the body, which is what she'd been doing all of her life, which manifested in the cancer, then there was no need for the cancer anymore. The cause of the cancer was gone, and it just disappeared. In a few weeks, it was gone. Very enormously profound demonstration of these principles, isn't it? Which is why the medical system went, oh, this is somehow dangerous, and had to deny it, because it's speaking about, you know, a transcendent power that they don't recognize. They only recognize the power of the body and of medicine, magical means, in other words, medicine to heal the body, and they've denied the power of the mind to heal the body in, you know, such a, you know, profound, miraculous way. Well, if that's possible, why isn't it always possible? Imagine if everyone could tap into that power. Well, they'd be put out of business, wouldn't they? No one would need them, because that power transcends anything that their magic can do. Okay, so anyway, that's we've done using my body as a scapegoat. So escape the self-imposed prison of hate. John, if you can read that.
To escape the self-imposed prison of hate, I must recognize that the body is not real, but an illusion of myself. Vengeance has no place in my true identity, and the body is not a barrier between pure formless awareness of perfect love and its extension. The body is outside me only in illusion, and there is nothing that separates pure formless awareness of perfect love from its extension except in illusions.
Okay, what's he saying there?
So he's saying that in order to escape the illusion, we must recognize that the body is just an illusion. It's not real. And take our realization back to the reality that is that we are pure forms of awareness. We are connected.
And it only happens in a dream. And this is the comforting thing. So, well, yes, you think you've done that, all seems to be very real to you, but you're just dreaming. It's a nightmare. It doesn't happen in reality. So, you can let go of your belief in this, and you can free your mind. Simple as that, and yet, not easy while you're in the body, because the body tends to occupy our consciousness and our attention so much. So we have to learn to look on the body correctly and perceive it correctly, in order not to use it as a block to the awareness of love's presence, to use it as a vehicle for the facilitating of that awareness. That's the profound shift and the transformation that he's talking about here. Okay, so it carries on. Elaine, if you can read this. I can reach the state of pure formless awareness.
I can reach the state of pure formless awareness by extending my hand, joining with the awareness that surrounds me. This joining occurs beyond the body, but within myself, as pure formless awareness of perfect love cannot exist where it is not. The sense of being transported beyond myself is a liberation that surpasses the dream of freedom found in special relationships. It involves a sudden unawareness of the body and merging of my mind with something beyond it, enlarging my awareness and uniting both as a whole. Does this carry on, this transport? Is that the same paragraph?
Another paragraph, yeah.
Oh, it's another one, yeah. So it's just saying, that we can reach out to this pure formless awareness and join with it, and it'll surround us and it'll go beyond the body.
Yeah, and these experiences do happen. I've had a couple of them. You know when it's happened to you. It's wow, that was expanded awareness beyond the body in that moment. There was no awareness of the body, and you merge with something beyond it, and you can't deny that something is there because you just experienced it. And unite as both as whole, and this kind of expanded awareness or peak experience is what makes people really experientially get this and know this. They're no longer just studying theory. They actually know it experientially, and that's all that a mystic is, really. They just know it experientially as opposed to know it theoretically. The difference between theologian and a mystic, and you see that well demonstrated in the Chosen series. You see Yeshua as a mystic because he gets it experientially, and the Sanhedrin, very much they're dogmatic, and they know the theory, they've studied the Torah, but they don't really get it at all, and so they find him very threatening and challenging, and eventually put him to death because it challenges their egos so profoundly that they have to just kill the messenger. It basically invalidates their entire structure, their thought system, the structure that they believe in, and they believe that they're the top of the Jewish faith. He's saying, well, actually, you're not. You don't really get it at all. Okay, so 3 more paragraphs to go. This transport can occur. Who's to read?
Me. The transport can occur regardless of physical distance, time, or form. I can join with anything because I love it and want to be one with it. It is not a violent escape. Rather, I perceive the body properly and willingly relinquish my limitations. In these moments, the barriers of time and space disappear, and I experience peace, joy, and a lack of awareness of the body.
Yeah, what's he saying here?
So he's saying that this transformation can happen regardless of what's going on in the illusion, and it doesn't depend on what the body's doing, only on me being willing to let go of my limitations.
Hmm. Lack of awareness of the body. So there's no sense of fighting. When people, this whole, if you read the book of Revelation, there's all this kind of fighting, isn't it? It's like, the kingdom, it's the way that John, the author, writes it, is very confrontational. It's like, the kingdom of heaven and the legions of God are going to now fight the legions of Lucifer, and there's going to be this great battle, and then the light will overcome the darkness. But in reality, it doesn't work that way at all. That was just his own understanding that he wrote down. It's really actually very peaceful. It's just a letting go. These illusions, you don't fight them; they just melt away. They just cease to exist in your awareness. That's what he's training our minds to do. It all just fades away and disappears, and you merge into this state of pure formless awareness in which peace, joy, and a lack of awareness of the body are your experience. Okay, and the last one, Elaine, is possible.
This escape is possible because I desire it. The expansion of awareness that occurs in the wholly aware moment calls me to myself within its embrace. I am invited to let go of self-imposed limits and enter a state of refuge where I can be at peace. This transition is not achieved through destruction, but by a quiet melting in. By releasing the limits placed upon love, I join it. It is an experience the peace that awaits me.
Yeah, what's he saying there?
Well, it is possible to escape from this limited awareness and join with love, because we have these self-limiting thoughts, and if we desire it enough, we will get there.
Yeah, so come back to this thing, the desire or the prayer of the heart. So what do you really want? That's what it comes down to. What do you want? Do you want to be a separate self? Individual, separate from your source, doing things on your own, or are you willing to let go and be one self? And that's the level of the miracle. The miracle takes you to the level of your self-concept, doesn't it? The true miracle is the shift from desiring to be a separate self to desiring to be oneself. And then, that desire plays out in the particular situation that you're in, because how you perceive and act in that situation is going to be determined by which self that you bring to help in that situation. So desire only the truth, and the truth must be yours. But you need to practice that desire. If you've desired to be a false self, then you need to start recognizing that that's false, letting it go, and opening your mind to the desire to be who you really are. the true self. And then that profoundly changes your whole mind, your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions, which make up your life in this world, change based on that fundamental desire. So, who do you want to be? And you decide that moment by moment in every situation. Okay. So then just key message, because it's quite a long one. I've got 2 paragraphs here, so each read one, just to summarize the whole thing.
I'll go. I should not project guilt onto the body to try and get rid of it, because this will make the body suffer and be sick. This seemingly proves that the body is real and I am a separate self that can be harmed and ultimately die. But I can reinterpret the body like all the instruments the belief in separation has made, with the help of the remembrance of perfect love, and perceive it as a means for awakening from the limits that the body represents.
Shall I read the next one? This is the body's only true function, and it will serve it well if I allow the remembrance of perfect love to direct my words and actions. If I do this consistently, I will be opening up my mind to a mystic experience of joining with something or someone that will show me the laws that seem to govern the body are not real, and merging with the infinite, eternal love I will experience in the now. In this state of pure formless awareness, I will experience the deep peace and joy that this loving presence inevitably leads to, and free my mind from its belief in separation once and for all time. Amen.
Yeah. So be it, so it is. Amen means so be it. Or so it is. So it is. And so it is. Okay, so what's he saying in that one? Overall, like in your summary of that, maybe both of you, just summarize the key message. What's he saying in the section? Key point, key message in your own words.
He's saying that.
Oh, sorry, go on, John.
Carry on in it. Carry on in
No, Joe, no, yeah, no, I like your wisdom.
It's saying that within the illusion we can project blame, our internal blame, onto the body, make it ill, and convince ourselves that we are separate. But that is an illusion, because everything happens in the mind, and if we change our mind and align with spirit, we can then start to understand that the body is a neutral thing and just a vehicle for us being here, and we can align ourselves with spirit, and that will take us out of the illusion of being a body.
Yeah, we can have an expanded experience. Saying beyond the body is this other world, other reality, and you can invite that expanded awareness to come, that mystic or peak experience to happen by correctly perceiving the body. So it's a twofold message. The one is, let go of the body and projecting your guilt onto the body, and then you open yourself up to an expanded awareness that shows you that there is a reality, infinite, eternal reality beyond the body. Elaine, anything to add to that? What's your take on it?
Like John said, yeah, we put so much emphasis on the body when it is just a vehicle. We take it too seriously and we separate it. when the mind dictates the body. So through the spirit, we will find our true self.
Yeah, and you got to understand that the world is set up to seemingly make you do this, to interpret the body as your reality. So, mentioning that end of life experience of my dad, the world wants to save his body. I'm like, that's just insane. Why are you trying to save his body? His body is old, it's falling apart. His quality of life is poor. He's suffering. Just let it go. Why are you trying to treat the body and preserve the body's miserable existence? Just let it go. Doesn't make any sense to hold on to this illusion any longer. But if you believe that the body is your reality and the body is your life, then that's all you have. You have to do that. So you see how the scientific materialist paradigm of the body is your reality then plays out in these systems, and it causes so much suffering. And it's just a delusion. So we can correct that and say, well, I don't have to believe in this. I don't have to, impose those limits, the laws that he talks about of the body on myself as I get older, and that can prevent so much suffering as you get older. And as I mentioned, Ramana Maharshi. So he gets cancer, but there's no suffering. Doesn't matter. He's not suffering with it all. As opposed to so many people who get these diseases and they suffer hugely, massive suffering and pain and trauma before they die. Well, what's the point of that? It just reinforces the ego's identity as a body and teaches the mind again that it's a body and not transcendent awareness or spirit, which is exactly the opposite of what it should be learning at that stage in its life. So a very, very pertinent message, especially as you get older, to bear in mind. You're not a body, and just don't project guilt onto the body by continuing to believe in the body's apparent existence and all of its pains and ailments and suffering. Just free your mind from it by letting it go. And then you open yourself to the mystic experience. That you may get one of these expanded experiences that shows you the awareness beyond the body is all there really is. Okay, so any other thoughts or comments or questions on this?
No, that's very clear. Good session.
Yeah, very good session. We haven't done a deep, intensive section of the text like this for a long time. So yeah, it's good. And
yeah,
I think you see the depth of wisdom in these teachings by going into the text in this way, which you don't get in the lessons. I don't go to the same depth. So thank you both for joining. I hope that was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, good night, everyone.
We'll reconvene tomorrow. Shall we do an afternoon session, Elaine? John, we have a 1 o'clock. Is that right?
That's right.
1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So let's meet at 2:30, Elaine. And
yeah, that's fine.
we
Yeah.
can do a couple of hours, 2:30 to 4:30. And I have to go. So yeah, join at 2:30. John, I'll see you at 1. And if you want to stay off afterwards for the group session with Elaine, you're welcome. Or just call it a day at 2:30.
Yeah.
Right. Good.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Namaste.
Bye night, Elaine. Cheers, John.
Good night. Bye.
Okay. Bye for now. Okay, so it's a wrap for today. I hope you enjoyed that. If you've watched the live stream or the recording, do subscribe to the channel to be notified whenever I go live, which is 3 or 4 times a week, by hitting the subscribe button. You can also go to lifebuild.com. You can see that in the background. Just type in lifebuild, put a .com on the end, and you will be able to sign up to receive a daily message from me in Telegram. I send out the daily quote that I shared at the beginning of the session, along with the teachings related to that, the daily lesson from the workbook, and a mini meditation or a breath break, as I call them, to help you practice the lesson for the day, all completely free of charge via Telegram. You'll just need to have Telegram on your device to do that. And you can also, you'll be notified whenever I'm running these live sessions on the Telegram messages. So you can join these live sessions and interact and participate for 3 weeks at no charge. So check it out, go to lifebuild.com, sign up, and hope to meet you on the inside soon. Thanks for watching or listening, and namaste, which means the transcendent self, the pure formless awareness, knows that it's just that awareness and not a body. Acknowledges and honors that same transcendent awareness in you. And me acknowledging that same transcendent awareness in you. Wishing you much love, peace, and joy in that awareness.